Welcome along, everyone, to a post-rainy Newcastle United game. Welcome along to the Toon Under Pod. I am Mark, and I am joined by Dimi to run through last night's / this morning for us, our Champions League game against Borussia Dortmund at a very waterlogged St James's Park. How are you going, Dimi? How was the early start for us? I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning for me, probably 6 a.m. for you for this game.
Yeah, so 6 a.m. is not as bad as it has been. So it's not too bad at a start time before work. So, I mean, look, we have been used to winning 3, 4, 5-0 recently and scoring goals for fun. So not scoring and not winning is not so fun. But I think we'll talk to it. It seems like we always do one of these ones together after we lose, and we have to always talk about perspective. But look, wasn't our day this morning or our night. So yeah, we'll get into it and go through what happened.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where your early starts are always much more enjoyable and manageable when you've actually won a game and won it convincingly. I was fresh off the meetup down in Melbourne, so I'm still recovering from my sleep-deprived Saturday night / Sunday morning with the national meetup for the Newcastle United fans. Huge attendance down in Melbourne for the Crystal Palace game. Perfect result for us. We all celebrated. I couldn't speak for 2 days afterwards. So yeah, much easier to kind of digest those sorts of games and instead of having to kind of pick apart a fairly depressing kind of game in fairly depressing conditions for the club. But we will do our best and we'll see how we go. So look, we'll touch on the team lineups first. So here's a slide. So I'm going to start with the Dortmund side, even though they're the way side. So Kobel, Schlotterbeck, Benzabani. I feel like Lee should be on here. And Nemecha, Royce, Fulkrug, Hummels, Wolf, Sabitzer, Malin, and Kantz. I think it was named Kanchi or something like
Chan.
that. Is it Chan? Chanks or something like that. Anyway, so look, the Dortmund side itself, I don't watch enough German football. We kind of needed Bobby to give us our insight on this one because this is his second side that he follows. Look, I don't know enough about them to know the ins and outs. I know that they've been struggling in the league, but have found some form of recent times. I think we were all expecting that this would be a fairly comfortable win after the PSG game and how Dortmund started the season off. But look, they've got some good players in. They've lost a lot of big name players. Obviously, Jude Bellingham. They've lost a wealth of talent over the last couple of seasons, but they always seem to find those next players to come through. They've got a fantastic setup for doing that. So hopefully we can kind of replicate some of that. But did you kind of look at that side and think, hang on, we're going to be really up against it here? Or is it that, well, they're missing a lot of talent now? Like, who do we need to look out for?
So it's not the same Dortmund team of yesteryear, let's say, when they had a lot more star names in that lineup, but there's still plenty of quality. I mean, Marco Reus seems like he's been around for 15 years. He's a stalwart. He's a top player. Obviously at the end of his career now, but still a very good player. Sabitzer we saw last year at Man United. He wasn't great, but he's a German international. Marlin's a Dutch international. He's a good striker. And Emre Can played at Liverpool for quite a bit as well. So they've definitely got players there, Hummels at the back. They've got players there that are well known and are dangerous. And the difference between what they have compared to us is European experience and the stadium that they play at and the atmosphere that they play at every week probably prepares them quite well for a game like this morning where the atmosphere was heaving and it was sort of them against us or us against them, however you want to look at it. So look, it's obviously not the star-laden team as it has been in yesteryear, but still enough experience and quality to hurt us and prove that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they certainly came out the traps pretty quick against us and seemingly trying to put us on the back foot early on. And I guess their European experience is come to the fore. I'll swip over to our Newcastle United lineup. So The pretty familiar back five of Pope, Trippier, Lascelles, Shah, and Byrne for the last few games has done us quite well. Bruno Longstaff and Joe Linton started in midfield for us, with Almiron, Gordon, and Isak in the forward three. Now, we know, like, let's address the elephant in the room here. Isak didn't last very long in this game. Apparently, he's done his groin again, so a similar injury is what he did before he went over to join up with the Sweden squad. Eddie Howe was interviewed after the game, seemed to suggest it wasn't anything super serious, but it was maybe just a precautionary thing, but they need to kind of do an assessment and see how things go. We know that Murphy came on in the second half, and he is now expected to sit out a long part of the games, a few games, with a suspected dislocated shoulder, potentially some ligament damage there. Looks quite a bad one. The beauty of that is, I mean, it's not like he's needing to put pressure on that arm and the shoulder to be able to play football. It is done with your legs, but it's not something that is going to be too easy to do. But that bench, to me, and given the injuries now, we've got two keepers on that bench with Dubravka and Karius both on there. We've got Dummett, we've got Target, we've got Hall and Livramento as fullbacks on the bench. So 4 fullbacks on the bench, 2 on the pitch. And then we've got Wilson as our only fit striker at the moment. Tonali on the bench, who is facing a lengthy ban coming up. Luckily, we've literally got Willock coming back from injury, which is an absolute huge boost for us. But that's looking like a pretty sparse bench, and it's starting to kind of catch up with us a little bit with these injuries, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And the other one you didn't mention who didn't make the bench this morning was Anderson, and we found out post game that he's probably going to be out for a couple of weeks. And I mean, we spoke about last week on the pod with Adam Peacock that we probably cannot afford many more injuries, especially with the upcoming suspension coming. And we've got, I think it was 7 games before the Palace game. I think it was 7 games in 21 days. So
wow,
we've got a massive ask in terms of football coming up before the next international break. And you're right, that bench is starting to look very, very thin. And I mean, it's probably going to come to a point, if it hasn't come already, that we may have to not deliberately throw the cup game against Manchester United, but field a very, very weakened team just to protect some of these players, because they're not going to be able to back up week in, week out, especially Callum Wilson. I mean, he's often injured anyway, and now he's going to be our only striker potentially for the next 2 or 3 weeks at least. So it is concerning. And I mean, the Murphy injury that happens, that's an impact injury where he fell down. You can't really do much about that to protect. The Isak one's interesting because soft tissue injuries can be recurring, and I think from memory, he had a recurring thigh injury last year. He had another soft tissue problem that kept him out a little bit towards the start of the season. So it is an issue with him that he has got re-injured when he has been coming back. And he did play for, I mean, only 10 or so minutes or 20 minutes against Palace on the weekend, and didn't pull up lame, or there was no issue for him that he started this game. The issue that I've got, though, him being out for 3 weeks, and that game against Palace, let's be fair, was a walk in the park. It was probably in first gear. It wasn't at any sort of intensity that this Dortmund game was going to be, and especially with the weather, with him wanting to impress against his former club with his intensity and his pace, you could just, I mean, it was a rest. In hindsight, it probably was a groin injury or a soft tissue injury was a recipe for disaster on that pitch in that weather, especially with his pace. So, I mean, we noticed it pretty quickly when he went to sprint away, and it looked like on the TV from our angle, he was through on goal basically from halfway, and he just couldn't go. Really, he had to wait for the oncoming support with Gordon. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, why didn't he sprint away from Hummels? Hummels isn't very quick, but it is an injury that can be recurring. So, yeah, we're going to have to really wrap up, I think, a few of those players in cotton wool for the next couple of weeks to try and protect them for certain games.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we didn't mention Botman's out, and he's now had a
Botman
bit
as
of a
well, yeah.
setback as well. So he's now kind of like a few weeks later than we expected to see him back. So it is starting to feel like, let's just throw that Man United game. I was going to ask you that later on in the show as well.
Yeah.
Like, is it literally at the point where we just can't deal with this number of games? We've got to prioritize one thing or the other. I think we need to focus on the league,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a toss up between Champions League or League Cup, I think, and I think we all know where the priority and where the money is going to come from. So we probably need to
Yeah.
see if we can qualify out of this group first and foremost, or at least finish third and get into the Europa League, where it still keeps us in a European competition. So yeah, so not the best, not the best of news with all of the injuries. Still a pretty strong lineup, and you would hope that things are maybe getting better for us with Willett coming back. But as you said, it's like it's going to be a wait and see on a few of those new injuries that we've had in this game. So I guess the first thing is the game as a whole. We seem to start really sluggishly. Dortmund came out of the traps, were right at us from day one in that, well, minute one in that game. Conditions certainly weren't helping us. Were we caught a little bit flat-footed after the PSG result, thinking, hey, we've got this in the bag? Or was it literally just that result's probably given everyone else in this group a bit of a wake-up call in terms of, well, hang on, yeah, look, they are the top 4 team, but they're not going to be a pushover. They're capable of winning these games if we aren't at our best.
I think more the latter. To be honest, I think Dortmund would have seen that if you play a 4-2-4, or if you try and disrespect Newcastle at St James's Park, you're going to get battered. So Dortmund, at their best, are a transition counter-attacking team. That's the way they play, and they set up perfectly for that. And they waited for us to either lose the ball, or they won the ball off us and broke well. I mean, I think they had that chance in the first minute for Marlon when he was one-on-one with Pope, and the rebound almost fell for Royce as well. So we were almost 1-0 down after a minute. So it did seem like, not that we took the occasion for granted, but the style of game potentially in those conditions and against that opponent wasn't going to suit us as well as it did against Paris Saint-Germain. And I think, not that we're naive in terms of we were going forward when we didn't need to. I think we were probably caught out from that experience perspective in these sort of ties, that every Champions League game, or in every game you play against a European team, is completely different. You can't base how you play against PSG against how you play against Dortmund, or how we played against Milan, etc. It's each game is going to be its own sort of event, and I think the way to sort of beat us and the kryptonite is teams who sit back and try and hit us on the break, or who don't give us space. And Dortmund were good enough to execute that, and we'll talk about the chances they had in the first half. They probably had 2, 3, 4 clear-cut chances in the first half, and they managed to put one away. Good luck to them, and yeah, they caught us out.
I think a lot of the chances were coming from our own mistakes as well. We seem to be very sloppy on the ball and trying to
Yeah,
play. And I've seen criticisms on social media already where, we got the tactics wrong. We didn't play the right type of football for the conditions. And there is probably a little bit of element of truth in that, where we were probably the agents of our own downfall for a lot of their clear-cut chances, because we were giving the ball away because we were trying to play sexy football in monsoon conditions, and it just wasn't set up for that sort of football. I mean, there was a lot of their chances were literally like misplaced passes from us, or our players just kind of like, sort of holding onto the ball a little bit too long and expecting too much time, which they just didn't get. And maybe they thought, like, they didn't get the pressure off PSG.
yeah,
Maybe they thought that they weren't going to get that pressure again, especially after the Palace game, because they put no pressure on us at the weekend either. So what? Yeah, it's that thing of like, well, we maybe do need to tailor our game a little bit more to the conditions, to the opponents, to the tactics, but you don't know that until the game starts. Look, there was some contentious decisions going both ways, and I was going to leave this till a bit later, but we may as well touch on the referee quickly now, because I've also seen a few of the criticisms pointed at the referee for not giving a foul in the build up to their goal, which Longstaff, I think it was, got dispossessed in midfield.
Gordon,
Was
it
it Gordon?
Longstaff?
Was it? Was it Gordon? Gordon.
Yeah.
And it was just that. Again, it was just like wanting a little bit too much time on the ball, expecting a referee call to bail them out almost, and it never came. I personally didn't see anything in that. I think it was probably a soft foul if there was anything in it at all. But what was very disappointing from my point of view was how slow we got back. We seemed to be just strolling back, worried more about why we didn't get a free kick than actually busting a gut to get back and actually defend that counterattack from them. Is that how you saw it? And were you like okay with the referee decision on that point?
Yeah, so the actual tackle wasn't a foul. The guy won the ball cleanly. I think it was just before the tackle he pulled Gordon's shirt. So if the referee spotted that, he should have called the foul for the pull of the shirt. He didn't spot that, and since he didn't spot that, he's not going to call the foul for the challenge on Gordon. I think, despite our 4 points from 2 games, I think we haven't been as good as Howe wants and as good as we can be on the ball for even the PSG game. There was moments against Paris that we gave the ball away. It was just that Paris played with 4 attackers, so we had that much space when we pressed them, and it was a little bit easier for us to pick them off, whereas Dortmund didn't give us that space. So our passing has been, to be honest, I think an issue in all 3 games. We have been a little bit sloppy trying that extra ball or that extra touch and not being as crisp as you can be. And I mean, this is the highest level of competition, club competition in the world. So any mistake you make or any sloppiness that you show, you're going to get punished. And Dortmund, you're right, they broke a lot quicker than us, and we couldn't get back. And the annoying part of that goal was we sort of left their guy and Mecca, or whatever you want to call him, sort of wide open on the edge of the box. It was a great finish, but no one was within 10 yards of him, and he sort of strolled up from all the way from the halfway line, making his own run with no one obstructing, no one going near him. And the cutback was a simple cutback, and it was a very good finish. But you're right, transition wise, we could have defended that moment a lot better.
Yeah, it seemed like we got caught on the back foot almost on the front foot, if you like, where we were trying to build that sort of that forward momentum. They broke, and we were kind of like, oh crap, hang on now, how do we get back in time? So look, these things happen. Yeah. It was a terrible time just before halftime to concede as well. Yeah. I mean, we didn't play well in that first half. We still had chances though. You know, we've created some opportunities. We still managed to be in the game, and I don't think you would look at that game in the first half and think, well, yeah, okay, look, 1-0 is probably flattering Dortmund. It could have easily been a draw, and I think the game overall is probably like, well, I think we're hard done by to come away without at least a point from that game, and we'll come into the second half in a minute. But you know, there were a few little incidents, and I mentioned about the referee. I was disappointed with his consistency. And I think for me, it comes down to I'm not blaming the referee for us losing the game. I think we've done that to ourselves. I think Dortmund played well. They had a game plan. They executed it perfectly. They, as you said, our Achilles heel, our kryptonite is when teams defend deep and try and counter it on us. And they did that beautifully. So fair play to them. Their defense held solid. They didn't create any real clear openings, even though we did hit the bar a couple of times in the second half, which we'll come back to. But he just seemed to be really inconsistent with both sides. And I don't think either side really felt like, in the conditions when it's not going to be a clean game of football, no one really knew which way to stick or twist in terms of like, well, do we fly into tackles and he's going to let it go because it's wet and rainy and we're sliding into things, or is he literally going to pull up the slightest little foul? So to me, that was the biggest disappointment of the referee's performance. But again, not blaming him for our loss, just disappointed that the consistency is not there from that level of football. As you said, this is the elite level of European action. You would expect a little bit better consistency from the referees. So look, we had a couple of half penalty shouts in the first half that didn't seem to go to VAR even in the slightest. Now, I have no problem with them not being given. The Almiron one was a very, very minor little touch, and he kind of hung his leg out to make sure he made contact. So if that was given against us, we'd all be livid. And then the big one for me, though, was Wilson. And this may have been second half. I can't remember now, but I remember Wilson got his shirt pulled as well in the box and went down, no call given. It's disappointing when you see something like that, because I think the Wilson foul should have definitely been given. He's obviously then looked for a penalty later on as well, didn't get it given. And I think someone in the group chat said, oh, we've hit that level of the game where it's going to be, let's fall over and look for something kind of time of the game. But you're happy with the Miggy decision and some of the other decisions that, you know, were waving things away in terms of VAR reviews and handballs and what have you?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything there that we can say was a clear and obvious error that we should have been awarded a penalty. I mean, you're right in terms of the inconsistency of the ref. He was very hit and miss. It was a bit him, and he seemed like one of those referees that wants to make him about himself, and he was trying to be sort of the shot, which it was nothing about him. And the game is never about the referees; they're just there to officiate the games. It probably shows people who don't watch European football outside of the Premier League that the standard refereeing, is bad in the Premier League, but it's not great all over Europe and all over the world. There is, for me, watching a lot of football, as you know, I don't sleep. I just watch football 24 hours a day. There's a lot of poor referees all over the world, and it's unfortunate because no one wants to make the game about the referee and see them sort of being the center of attention. It felt like this guy wanted to be the center of attention, and it just, as the game goes on and we can't find that breakthrough, it just builds a frustration that any sort of moment goes against us, we're just going to get more frustrated. So, look, nothing clear and obvious from the ref, but bring back, exactly right. Bring back Kalina. Let's don't bring back Howard Webb, but bring back Kalina maybe. But I think, look, he was very inconsistent, and it was just one of those nights that it just seemed like it wasn't going to fall our way in terms of those decisions.
Yeah. So the second half kicked off. We were unchanged for a good portion of that, up to, I think it was 65 minutes. I think Eddie Howe brought on a couple of substitutions, made some wholesale changes to try and be probably a more attacking change than what he normally would do. He brought on Murphy while keeping Miggy on the pitch. I thought he was hoping maybe Miggy was going to play in that kind of like number 10 role, or didn't quite work out because he seemed to kind of still stay out on the right-hand side while Murphy was out there as well. But I think the overall opinion from most fans, from Eddie Howe himself, was we played much, much better in the second half. We definitely controlled the game a lot better. We created some clear-cut chances, kept them at bay. They didn't really have anything major in the second half to talk about. Much better. But as you said, it's like is it just like, you know, as that game goes on, they're defending deeper and deeper. We're struggling to break them down. I thought Trippier's delivery from set pieces was actually quite poor as well against Dortmund, which has been so vital for us over the last few games, where he's been pinpoint with his passing, he's been pinpoint with his free kicks and his corners, and we've benefited from that. And I think a lot of those balls were either flying into the keeper's hands, or, you know, like overshooting some of the players. It was a little bit disappointing, and it's like, it's those sorts of moments that you need when these sorts of games are on the line, where you're struggling to break that, to find that little sort of breakthrough. But, you know, do you think that, you know, on another night, is it just that we've had an off night? We haven't quite been at our best. We've played much better in the second half. We haven't had that little bit of luck that goes our way, that you sometimes need when you are struggling. We've hit the bar twice. We've had the keeper pull off a couple of good saves from us. You know, Callum Wilson could have had probably 2 easily. We've had a couple of other like close call shots. Is it just that, you know, you just put this down to like one of those nights where it just was never going to happen for us?
I think it felt like that at the end of the game. I mean, towards the end of the game, it just felt like, especially that when that Gordon one hits the crossbar and bounces on the line, sort of away from the goalkeeper, that could have gone anywhere. It could have bounced off the keeper. It could have bounced off the post and in. When that sort of thing happens, you know it's definitely not your night. But I think in terms of the crossing point, our crossing generally was poor. I think, and I think we resorted to crossing a bit too early and a bit too deep, and that suited Dortmund, especially when they brought on their extra centre half, that big lad Sula. So
Yeah.
I don't feel that we maximised the sort of the players we had getting in the box, especially at the end. They weren't interested in attacking. They were just holding on,
No.
especially for the last 20, 25 minutes. So we probably didn't use our territory. And again, it's one of our kryptonites. We're not great when teams just sit deep. We don't know how to pick that pass. We don't really know what to do when teams sit back. We sort of move the ball out wide, try to look for a 1-2. The pass is basically a 1% chance of hitting. If it hits, we're in. If it doesn't, we lose the ball. So I'm thinking that this sort of game, especially in those conditions, I was hoping that we are going to take a few more shots, to be honest, from outside the box.
Yeah.
Maybe Cher would just run forward and crack one. Maybe Bruno would hit one, or someone would just have a crack from outside the box. Who knows? In those conditions, it could get a deflection. Something could happen. I think it was that sort of game where we had to try something different, like you said, and maybe a bit of luck would have gone our way. But in terms of Callum Wilson, just quickly, he also had that chance. I think it was early in the second half where Gordon sort of put it on a plate for him and he just couldn't get it away from the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper did well. He came out and made himself big. But, I mean, Callum Wilson in that position, you'd back him 9 times out of 10 to score. So, again, it's one of those things. Normally it goes our way. It doesn't. It seems like we used all that goal luck again. Goal up against PSG, against Sheffield United, against Palace, where we're banging 4 goals, 8 goals, 9 goals for fun. And it just... it just didn't go our way this morning.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the recent performances, everything that we've touched has come off, and we've scored goals from, like we've had one shot on target and we've scored a goal from it, and things are just falling in our lap. And this was one of those games where just nothing went our way, and I'm happy to concede that. As I said, I think Dortmund played well. They had their game plan, executed it perfectly, and we keep saying this, like when Klopp gets annoyed about teams parking the bus against Liverpool. It's like, it's not their responsibility to open up and let you score. It's like,
come and score. Come and score. Exactly.
Yeah, it's up to you to find a way to find a way past their defense. And it's like, we couldn't do that today. And as you said, it's like, though we're looking for those little 1%ers that may come off now and again as our little bit of luck. And that was not going our way tonight. We need to find a way of finding just a cutting edge pass, or as you said, just taking a shot from outside the box and hope for the best. It's like, look for those deflections, we'll see how things go. Well, let's have a look at the final stats for the game anyway. So shots, 9 shots for us to 13 for them. I think that kind of flatters them a little bit, to be honest. I've seen a couple of different versions of these stats as well, so I'm not entirely sure how accurate these are. 3 shots on target for us, 5 shots on target for them. I don't know if the shots on target for us includes us hitting the bar, whether or not that's classed as an off target. Yeah,
it's off target.
Yeah, but 60% possession to us to 40% for them, 466 passes to 320 for them. We controlled the game in that second half really, really well. Our pass accuracy, 82% in those conditions to 73% for them. I'm actually really impressed with, and I'm quite surprised at, given that we've already discussed that we've given the ball away sloppily in midfield a couple of times, looking for those like those little sort of thread the needle balls, or we've tried to hold on to the ball too long. Now the fouls, 8 to 15 in favor of us. Like 15 fouls for Dortmund seems quite high for only 1 yellow card.
Yep.
So again, this comes down to like we've got this inconsistency in the ref. It didn't seem to be, and I wonder if a few of those fouls came late on in the game and he was just like, I'm not going to book anyone now. It's getting too late now. Or like, let's just let them get at it.
Can't be bothered writing my book anymore. Yeah.
But again, our Achilles heel for breaking these sides down comes from we've had 9 corners, and we're good at defending corners ourselves. I can't remember the last time we've actually conceded from a set piece, but we don't seem to score many from them either. And I think that's one thing that we definitely have benefited from over the last couple of games, where we've been scoring from corners and set pieces. And you just want one of those chances from those 9 corners to just, and that's without all of the free kicks around the box that we had as well. I mean, we had one shot on target. Well, that one shot that hit the bar from Wilson. That was from a Matty Target.
Target
free kick. So for me, I'm at the point where, look, if it's not coming off for Trippier, get someone else on. You've got Sandro Tonali on, who's absolutely brilliant at set pieces, and I don't think we've actually had him take a single corner or free kick since he joined. And Matty Target's proven that he can put the ball in the right areas as well. So look, I'm happy with Trippier taking those free kicks and the corners. But if it's not coming off, get someone else on there and give them a crack. And it was obvious that it wasn't coming off. And
it seemed like as well that with the corners, I mean, that's a lot of corners. And I don't think we won one first ball on any of those corners. They're all either direct to the keeper or they cleared it. So it didn't seem like there was much variation from our corners. And there might have been one short corner, but they all seemed to be pretty close to the goalkeeper where he cleaned up. And with a team like us who are a very very good usually from set pieces, or there is good delivery from Trippier, or we do have something up our sleeve where we try something different. It was frustrating this morning where it was one of those games where we weren't creating chances from open play. Set pieces was going to be potentially our ticket back into the game, and it wasn't to be from the corner. But you're right, Matty Target comes on, takes a free kick, and I mean, live, Wilson's header didn't look like going in, but then you see the ball hit the crossbar and you're thinking, geez, if that's half a centimetre lower, it's 1-1. And then,
to be honest, Wilson did really well from that to actually get it on target.
He did, it was a fantastic
header. It was not an easy shot, not an easy chance. So right then, so let's look at the painful bit. The table as it stands at the moment, PSG won against AC Milan, so they go top of the group now. Dortmund leapfrog us up into second thanks to UEFA's batshit policy of head-to-head counting more than goal difference. So we find ourselves on third spot with 3 better goal difference than Dortmund in second, but on the same points. It is what it is. I'll hold my hands up. I didn't know that was a thing until we looked at the table and tried to figure out what was going on. But apparently that is the case. So look, sitting in third position in that group with 4 points on the table. We've scored 4 goals. I'm not complaining at this point in time. I think we all knew this was going to be a tough group. I think people maybe got a little bit carried away with the PSG result. Do you think, in terms of their expectations of where we were going to go in this group? I said before this started that I would be more than happy with third spot. We drop out into the Europa League, and we've got a pretty decent crack at winning that. We're not going to win the Champions League. I don't care what anyone suggests. It's just not going to happen. So yes, it would be nice to qualify for the knockout stages, just as a, well, we told you so. We're here to compete, not just to kind of like, we're not just to sort of show up and be that punching bag for all the other sides. Yes, it was a group of death, but I guarantee you none of those other 3 clubs in that group wanted us in their group. We're not a normal pot 4 team. We are going to give teams good games, and they know that they now need to turn up and perform when they come to St. James's Park, or when they sort of host us at theirs. So what do you make of the weird head-to-head rule, though?
Yeah, I know it's been in place for a while because I've been following the Champions League obviously for a very long time. But the weirdest thing about this group standing is Dortmund sits second on 4 points, and they've scored 1 goal in 3 games. That's very strange. You've scored 1 goal in 3 games, but you've got 4 points in your second. That's peculiar. But look, I think what it shows is we're well and truly in this group with 3 games to go. And I think if you offered a Newcastle fan 4 points from the first 3 games, I think everyone would have taken 4 points. I think everyone probably would have said at the start, maybe a draw in Italy, Paris will do us over at home, and maybe Dortmund could be the one we win. I think that's what most people would have said before the group started. So it's happened in reverse, and I think we're happy it's happened that way because we got the great Paris Saint-Germain result, and nothing can take it away that evening, and the feelings we had that evening. Nothing will ever change. Even how we do in this group, nothing will ever change that evening. So I think we're well and truly in this group, and yeah, there's been a lot of chitter chatter on social media that we're done. We've got 2 away games to come. We're not going to get another point in this group. We're finished, but I think there's plenty more to come in this group for us, and especially even the next game, the return game against Dortmund. I think it's going to be probably a similar game to today, but it might suit us a little bit better, being that they're the home team in front of 75, 80,000 screaming Dortmund fans, that they're going to be having the onus to attack, and that's exactly what we want. We want teams to attack us, push up a little bit higher, so we can hit them on the counter attack where we do our best work as well. So there's a long way to go in this group. Still 3 games to go, and I think it's probably Milan playing PSG next. Probably unlikely to get a result in Italy against Paris. You'd think Milan could be just about cooked, and it's going to be down between us and Dortmund. So look, as long as we don't get beat again in Germany, I think we're well and truly in this group, and hopefully we can, hopefully we get second. But if we don't, I think third is well and truly in our grasp.
Look, there were plenty of people writing us off saying we wouldn't get a single point from that group before it kicked off. So I think we've well and truly proven them wrong. So I'm happy that we are where we are. As you said, we're still well and truly in that group, and let's see how things go. It's like we've got a fortnight to prepare for the away game. We've already discussed, where do we tank the League Cup game midweek next week and give ourselves a break? I think either way, even if I don't think Eddie Howe is the type of manager that is going to intentionally tank games. I think he wants to go out there and win every single one. But the reality is, I think we're going to have to rest players against Man United, and
Wilson, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what other options we've got to play up front. Maybe Gordon, but Gordon's someone that we probably need to rest as well. So 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 the options are going to be limited. Let's see what happens. Man United might play their sort of weakened side as well, because they've got other priorities. Let's see what happens. But we're still in the we're still in the group. We're still kicking on. It's good.
I think
times ahead.
Exactly. I think it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, again, a lot of people following Newcastle probably don't watch Bundesliga and probably don't know a lot about the other European teams. So they see us beating PSG with Mbappe, Dembele 4-1. They think, how good's this Champions League where we're just going to stroll through? It's definitely not like that. There's a lot of good teams all over Europe. So we got to respect the competition. And we were second best, especially in the first half. And probably should have deserved the draw, but we got beat. That's okay. That's going to happen.
It happens.
Very good European opposition, and we're allowed to lose games. I mean, we've been so spoilt for the last. I've been saying it for a while, but really the last 2 years now, we've barely lost many games. I think we can probably count on 2 hands how many games we've lost over the last 2 years. That's how good we've been under Eddie Howe. And when there's a loss or there's a bad performance, everything turns to shit and there's a meltdown on socials. But
it is crazy that I don't fully understand the complete over the top reaction to we've lost. It's not like we've played.
We should be used to losing. We were losing for 20 years.
Exactly. We've had 10 years under 15 years under Mike Ashley, losing games left, right, and center. It shouldn't be a shock to the system.
No.
I understand that there's this sea change in fan attitude of, well, we can't just keep blaming the Mike Ashley era and saying, oh, well, at least it's not as bad as that. So I do get that, and we can't just keep using that as an excuse for mediocrity when we don't play well. And we didn't play well in that first half, but we played well in the second half, and it just wasn't our day. So I'm happy enough with that. Social media does tend to overreact. There is always this, it is that sort of instant reaction, isn't it? It's like everyone's very hot-headed. It's like they've just lost a game, emotional, and it all comes spilling out online, and then everyone in fights because some people are trying to sit back and take it objectively, and some people are still like, no shit, like get everyone out, like they're all crap. So look, I think there is that sort of like middle ground where it's important to kind of have a little bit of perspective, understand that we're not going to win every game, as you said. But one of the big things that I saw on social media was about the crowd, which I want to ask you about, was about the crowd noise. And You mentioned there's going to be like 80 odd thousand Dortmund fans inside their stadium in a fortnight's time, and we know the yellow wall, and we know that they are insane fans and they make a load of noise, and they made a load of noise in this game as well. And we've already had an internal chat in our group chat about the pros and cons of drums at grounds. Dimi is very well and truly in favour of the drums and the extracurricular things at football grounds that create atmosphere. Craig less so. I'm kind of leaning more on the line of where I get where Craig's coming from. I don't really want drums beating in my ear when I'm at a football match. I want to be able to chant and sing and support the club, but I get it, each to their own. I'm not gonna hold that against them, but they made loads of noise. There's been a lot of criticism about our home atmosphere. Now, from what I was hearing on the TV, and this is the thing, it's like I don't know whether or not people are assuming that this is a bad thing because they're either in a quiet area of the ground or they've watched it on TV. But from our broadcast that we watched here, the sound kept cutting out all the time. And there were times where we were literally listening to the commentator with no background noise whatsoever. That's not the crowd. That is just really, really dodgy audio from the TV companies. So I have been at games, I keep saying it's like, I was at the Arsenal game for the last home game of the season when Eddie Howe kept us up. The atmosphere there was electric. You could bottle that and make an absolute mint. It was such a good game. And we've had other games, and, do you feel that sometimes the fan expectations, because we are labeled as these great fans, and some of the commentary was saying that the fans are making loads of noise and they're getting behind their team, and the players are giving them something to lift. So is it just a case that fans have this unfair expectation, so that there's this maybe the PSG game was next level because everyone was up for it. It was the first Champions League game in 20 years and everyone was revved up for it. Now we've got like the follow-up game, and maybe it wasn't quite as loud, maybe it wasn't quite as sort of vocal for as much of the game. But given that it was pissing down with rain as well, and everyone's probably like well, I'm going to get out of here because I know the traffic's going to be shit. So maybe there was a little bit of that going on as well. It's easy to get up for a game and be vocal when you're winning against PSG at home and you're scoring goals for fun. As opposed to struggling to hold on to the ball a bit. Do you feel there's a problem with the crowd, or is it just this sort of like perception or an unfair expectation?
I don't think there's a problem with the crowd. No, I think, and Craig's going to love this, I think English fan culture is a bit different to European fan culture. And what I mean is the crowd will react when the players perform. When there's a big tackle, when there's or at Newcastle, it seems there's a tackle and then everyone's up and about. But usually if there's a chance or if there's pressure being created, the fans will react and they'll give their all and they'll be chanting, there'll be noise. But if the game's dull or if we're misplacing passes, there's going to be groans, there's going to be moans, and there's not that constant chanting. So that's where there's that misconception. The atmosphere is a bit down, but it's just not in the culture, I think, of English football that there's going to be singing for 90 minutes, whereas German football, other European countries, they sing, chant no matter what for 90 minutes. That's what they do. That's what they do to support their club, and that's fantastic. I'm massively, as you know, in favour of that style of support, and like you said before, each their own. But that style of support is one way, and it was that sort of game this morning. I think in the weather as well, there was not that much action from us in terms of goal mouth action or in terms of us pressing them into oblivion like it was against Paris. So it was harder for the fans to get right up and about. I mean, Gordon, a couple of times you could see him try to rev the crowd up. Bruno tried to do it as well in the first half. It felt a little bit faker. There wasn't that same energy, I think, on the pitch for the fans to get right up and about. So I think it's game script dependent, and there's going to be those games where we are frustrated that the fans aren't going to be a little bit quieter.
There's going to be some of that purely and simply down to the fact that we've got more possession and we're knocking it about and we're not really doing anything with it for some portions of the game. You know, unless it's like you're, 5-0 up and you're knocking it about and everyone's got the whole Brazilian
Ole.
cheer going, ole,
Yeah.
and it's like it's not going to happen all the time. And it's like, well, yeah, he just passed it like 5 meters. Great, yeah, we'll cheer for that. I'm not that that's not a thing, and it's not going to be a thing for British football. So I'm happy with that. It's easier to get up and start making noise when you're seeing the opposition have plenty of the ball, but you've got your players running a million miles an hour, running into tackles, sliding in, winning the ball back. They're giving you something to get behind. So I totally get that. I just think, yeah, it's a little bit unfair on the fans that are there. I thought there were portions of that game that we were making plenty of noise. It's just not going to be 90 minutes. It's not going to be a full 90 minutes of just constant noise and atmosphere like the PSG game was. It's just not going to happen. So we'll leave it for there. There's one more thing I want to touch on before we leave, and that is player mentality. So I've noticed over the last kind of 12 months where we've played well and we've established ourselves as a very good team, and we are very good on our day. You don't beat teams by 8-0 if you're not a good side. I don't care how bad the opposition are on the day. However, it seems to me that our players prefer and certainly perform better when they're the underdogs, when there's like almost like this free hit mentality of we're just going to go out there, we're going to like bully the opposition, we're going to kind of go at them hard, we're going to fight for everything. When there's the expectation to win, when there's the expectation that, well, we should be looking to win a cup final, we should be looking to beat a Borussia Dortmund side at home, we always seem to kind of like go into our shells a little bit more. Do you think that's a mental toughness thing, or do you think it's literally just a belief of those players where at some point, we've lost the Liverpool game twice now in 2 years to last minute goals? And it's like, is it starting to get that mentality where we believe in ourselves that we can finish these big teams off, we can win those big games?
I just think we're still big game virgins. We're not used to this pressure. I mean, we've played in big games before in terms of relegation battles, because that's how shit we've been for a long time. And I mean, we had the cup final. There's been big performances that we've had, but you're right. It's been when it's us against them, when hasn't been as much fan expectation. And I think Howe's trying to create that winning mentality and that expect to win every single game. Doesn't matter where we play, who we play. It's Manchester City, it's Brentford, it's Burnley. You want to win every single game, home and away, and that's great. But this team is still, I think, learning to do that, and it's probably slightly unfair for us to expect us to be nailing these big moments week in, week out, or more often than not. And we are winning still our fair share of more important games, let's say, but there is still that hurdle that we need to get over about when there's expectation for us to beat a very good team, can we do it? And that's going to come, I think, in time as we get A, better players, and B, more experience in these games. I think these games are great learning experiences for us. The cup final, as shocking as it was to lose to that mob, it was an experience for us. I'm sure if we get to Wembley anytime soon, we're going to be better for that performance. And I'm sure against Dortmund, when we play against them in Germany, we'll be better for that performance. I think we just need, unfortunately, as silly as it's going to sound, we just need time for these guys to play together in these big games, in these big moments. And the more they experience it, they can sort of have that reference and then, okay, I remember that game against Dortmund when we were 1-0 down. We did this wrong. Next time we're going to do that, and so on and so forth. And that's how good performances grow. And I think that's sort of where we need to get to in the next, hopefully in the next 6, 12, 18 months, where we can start not just playing these big games and competing, but losing, but winning big games and eventually winning, hopefully, trophies.
Well, I think it's like you've touched on it as well. I think fan expectation, like when they're moaning and groaning because passes are going astray, that's probably adding more pressure. And the fan expectation, I think, for those sorts of games, like against Dortmund, where there was a fan expectations. Well, they're not playing great. We've just beaten PSG. We should hammer these.
4-1, yeah.
Well, hang on a bit. Why aren't we like already 2-0 up at half time? What 1-0 down? When did this happen? So there is this sort of fan expectation that creates more pressure, I think, as well. And I think we saw that for the cup final. I think the cup final itself was this perfect example of how much pressure the fan base can put on the players when there's this expectation or desire for some sort of success. And that was my big thing last season when everyone was saying, oh, well, what do you prefer, Champions League or a cup final win? My answer was a cup final win. And it was just purely and simply to get that out the way, get the monkey off our back and just get that bit of silverware and stop that fan disappointment, get that pressure off the players. That was my only reason for wanting that. And I think it showed in the final. The 2 weeks leading up to the final was just batshit. Everyone was like, that's all anyone talked about. And it affected the players. I don't care what anyone says. Nick Pope, yeah. It's like we've seen the ramifications of all that pressure. So for me, I just think it's going to take time, as you said. Like, I think it's just a case of players finding that inner belief that, hang on, no, we do belong here. We can do this. We are in amongst teams that we should be able to beat, and we can beat, and we'll go out there and we'll do our best and we will beat them, rather than maybe, some of the misplaced passes, maybe wanting that little bit more time comes from not wanting to do anything wrong. Maybe it's that extra little bit of pressure. So we'll see. Look, I'm still not sort of upset over this game. I'm disappointed in a loss, but we played well in the second half. There will be other days where we get a result out of that. There will be days where we probably play worse than that and end up with a 2-0 win coming off Callum Wilson's ass or something. So happy days ahead. That's all I can say is we are on the way up. We are still improving. We are still learning, and we are still continuing to get better. So it has been a pleasure talking to you again, Dimi. I appreciate your time for tonight, and we'll probably be back on. I'm not sure who's actually scheduled on, but we will be back for a review of the Wolves game at the weekend, and then we'll be looking forward to that cup game against Man United in midweek. So thank you very much for everyone who's been watching and listening. Don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe and drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or give us a 5-star review on some of the audio platforms. But it is a pleasure as always, and it will be we'll be looking forward to another Toon podcast coming at you quite soon. Thanks very much, Dimi.
Cheers, mate.